Hi everyone. Himalayan paintings of Nicholas Roerich is on exhibit at Chitrakala Parishad from its museum collections. The exhibition is curated by Dr. Vijayashree, and today there was a gallery talk by art historian Mr. Suresh Jaira.
What is the first impression you get when you see these small paintings? Because these other paintings are not small, and these paintings are done on packaging board, they are tempera works, and why do you have any idea of what is the purpose of these works? They are cardboard, and the most amazing thing is that they're not faded. Right? The brightness of the colors still exists, and they almost look luminous. They emit light, and there is this kind of luminosity that is so visible that is not seen in other works. I've seen artists coming in and saying that oh, these things are not faded. We have some artists amongst us. It's so difficult that because of our tropical atmosphere, things fade. But these are being here for more than 30 or 40 years. And they are not oil on canvas, but they are still very pristine. They're almost like you are looking at the landscape. Tempera means powdered mineral colors. It can be used in egg yolk or used as some other medicine is used. One of my friends here, who I just met, said that tempera, in traditional techniques, tempera is used with tamarind seeds. It's crushed, becomes gooey, and it's used as a medicine, and also it's very pure. It does not have chemicals. Yes. So why Himalayan? This is called the Himalayan studies. So before I show you, they don't use the pulp, only the seed.
They take out the skin, man. You can take out
Okay,
the
before I show you, before you move through this, I will need some help. Quest of spirituality. Buddhism was a big draw. Going to Tibet was another, something like a field yatra. And if we also look at many Indians now, everybody wants to dash off to see Kailash, right? Because they believe that it's sacred mountains, etc., etc. But this is there in the mind of people that you have to go to the mountains to seek God, or to speak spirituality, or to be alone. And it's also a very touristic thing in our mind. Either we are on the sea or on the mountains. So he was a spiritual tourist. And what he did was, he did many of these drawings. He was obviously a humanist, archaeologist. He studied Buddhism, and he was so much interested in Tibetan Buddhism. And the fascinating thing is, he had a great opinion about himself. He thought he's the next Dalai Lama. So, little problematic there. I don't think all the Tibetan Buddhists would like a Russian to be the next Dalai Lama. But you can imagine whoever you want to. So he and his wife were these two intellectuals who were going on this sojourn, which fascinatingly, if you read up, these expeditions were funded by the American government, by the White House. So people had suspicions of Roerich. They thought he's a spy. He might be passing on information about China and Tibet to America. We don't know more details about that. But obviously, the first thing you ask somebody is that how does China look, or how did you go to Tibet, right? So these were the things that come up. And the most important thing was, there wasn't a person who was so cosmopolitan like Nicholas Roerich. He knew everybody. If you know everybody, like the presidents of America, and I think Vijayashree history, and he was having a conversation saying that there was some controversy about the Senate funding this bill. And so obviously there was something suspicious, and there were also some people resigned because they asked questions of why did you fund Derek's trip abroad. But back to our roaring is that he had this long trip all over India, and what were his big influences? One was this extreme in search of mysticism, turning his back against the materialism of Europe and the war, moving away from the war that was so brutal that none of his paintings show anything about that context. So he was like a romantic who was not conscious, or he did not want to speak about the past or his immediate situations. So this journey, the Himalayan journey, became a very important tangent for him to move around, draw a trajectory that will take him to all these places that an explorer would do. And this exploration became a very important aspect of trying to discover something. So what was he trying to discover? So there was something like the Shambhala. And also they created a kind of a group where Helena Roerich, his wife, was also very involved in these kind of mystic rituals, and they were together with the influence of Madame Blavatsky. If some of you know that she's very influential, although she's tucked away in the history of Theosophy in India, but her influence has been very vital for many artists of the world, including people like Kandinsky. So there has been a big influence on Helena and Sviatoslav Nicholas Roerich. But again, if we see that all these landscapes which are here, they don't have a single human being. So spectrum of colors which are mostly hues. Another very important work, like if you see it, that these sketches were something he had in mind. Probably he wanted to send this as postcards to friends.
This is not his.
This is his. The reason I'm showing you this was there is not a single word here of his important larger canvases.
They're not here.
They're not here.
Where are they?
It's another story. They are in every important museum in the world. Most of them might be in New York, where the Roerichs have a large museum. So some of them are in Victoria and Albert Museum. Some of them are also in the collection of the Maharajas in Trivandrum. Yes?
There are some
Kulu Manali, you know. Okay, and most have a lot of reminiscences of miniature paintings, like the foreground, background, this extremely romantic idea of nature, and there's no hint of urbanism. And all these pictures of them going on expeditions, explorers. Okay. They were very keen practitioners of Agni Yoga, and they obviously it was not a Christian thing to do. So they were kind of thought as esoteric, right? And they were kind of banished from being part of the Orthodox Church in Russia. And also, as soon as Lenin came to power, Mr. Roerich packed his bags and moved. So there are also rumors saying that there are connections with the Tsars, and some of the Tsars' jewelry was with them. We don't know. These are all rumors. But that's not our business also. We all want to have these dramatic stories about them. But what is important is that these are also important works that were lying in the Tatguni estate. And they are part of CKP collection. That is how historically we are connected to Rorik. So I have my contemporary Smita here, and we were just talking that when we were students, Setoslav Rorik and Devika Rani used to come to Chitrakala Parishad. So we kept our distance, we didn't talk to them, etc. Mr. Rorik used to have this long beard, he used to look like very handsome, like Tagore, and he used to wear printed Mysore silk shirts. And Devika Rani they used to come out and feed the dogs, hang around, walk around with Mr. Nanjun Rao, sit in their car, ambassador car, and go back to where they were living. I think they were living somewhere in Cunningham Road or Edward Road. Edward Road. And what is fascinating is, one day my friends, when we were 40 years ago, they told me that if you talk to Setoslav Rorik, we'll buy you an ice cream. So I just said, okay. So I went and asked him this question, what is composition? So he had a great answer. He said, composition is like the nail on which you hang your painting. One line answer, I think it was brilliant. But later on we realized that these people are human as much like all of us, and they obviously were curious about what these children are going to become, and here am I talking to about his father after many, many years. So we'll go back to this and look at the colors here. So are they real, unreal? Possibly they're very much influenced by the symbolic artists.
No, but they're actually real. If you go to the mountains, these are the colors.
Yeah, but they're kind of stylized. Yeah. They're also stylized. And if I can think of one artist, who do you think this painting resembles in the Western art world?
Caspar David.
Yes, Goga. Frederick also. I think if there's this imagination of the romantic was very much there for Mr. Rorik to put one person against the backdrop, this eternal landscape, one horizon, one person standing there between earth and heaven. So this is what you see, and this is what is this pristine backdrops of. It's also an Orientalist gaze, a phrase that is used in contemporary art history where they talk about this idea of looking at nature through this gaze. And if you look at Setoslav and Nicholas's life, it was like they did not have anything else to do. They were very rich. They came to India. They were living, they finally settled down in Kulu, and they were going on these expeditions discovering minerals and rock crystals, etc. And one of the interesting things is that many of them resemble rock crystals.
Yeah.
Right? Also, there is a particular painting where these glowing rocks are supposed to represent some treasure hidden in the Himalayas. We'll go to the next one. The canvas, and it is treated. You also realize that here the board is most visible. Possibly he used a kind of coating, a wash, and then he started making these images. And if you look at the works carefully, you realize that he's trying to look at these mountains at different timings. Early morning, afternoon, dawn, dusk, maybe at night also, nocturnal views. So he was so obsessed with the mountains. I think there's no other person who's so obsessed with the mountains. That also reflects in his son's work later on. I mean, Setoslav was very much influenced by the father. So if you really look at this work, you'll be wondering that this is some very mystic thing, you know, like there's some fire here and there's some yagna kind of thing happening, and there's one man, very secretive things. Possibly spiritual quest is another interesting thing. So here is Mr. Rorik, who is seen with the most important people of India. There are pictures of him with Nehru, Mrs. Gandhi, going for a walk with Rorik.
This looks like warrior.
No, this sculpture is there in the Manali house.
Oh, it's in the Manali.
Yeah, it is a folk sculpture from the Kulu region. It's a stone sculpture.
But it
And
looks like the warrior thing of China. No, but now that he mentions it, in Himachal also they do a lot of this kind of.
yeah, and their house is, it's like a museum. And so you can imagine they would have collected a lot of stuff. Here is Mr. Nicholas Roerich trying to shoot an arrow. And obviously his aim is quite skillful. There are photographs of him and him relaxing in his room. So it was a life of leisure. They didn't have to work hard like us artists, 2 jobs and trying to paint. There's no problem at all. There's no problem of money.
All this American funding.
No.
We don't know.
For without going into controversies, I think the Roerichs were very, very rich. They were collecting miniature paintings, they were collecting artifacts, they had a life of their own, they did not have to rely on things. And why should they come to India?
So maybe they will have some salvage.
There's some kind of a lightning striking, this man walking into this mountainscape, spring in Kulu. Other very, very interesting work. I think this work is St. Francis of Assisi, one of the saints of Christianity, the most humanist saint, and his iconography is always conversing with birds, feeding them, etc., etc. And from my research, I realized that this is on some permanent loan to some museum. And all of them have, in the language, visual language, all of them have a tinge of Russian icons, look like Russian icons, etc. Okay, now I'm going to ask Vijayashree to tell us more about this particular painting, which she just narrated to me. So we'll go to the blue wall.
Roerich was also known for this peace treaty, peace pact that he designed. He wrote, and as part of that, he created a symbol which is called the Banner of Peace symbol, which is these 3 orbs almost coming together inside a large red circle. This is one of his very popular painting, and it also became very popular recently also for a very different reason. In April, Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi post a selfie of them showing the ink on the finger after having voted. And then at the backdrop of that selfie was this painting called Madonna Oriflama. After this selfie came out in public, one set of the political groups charged at him, saying that he's clearly Christian. There's this painting of Virgin Mary in his home and all of that. And then another set of the political spectrum, in order to clarify this, they explained that this is actually Madonna Oriflama, where the Roerich has painted the Virgin Mary or Madonna holding this banner of peace. We cannot associate it with any one religion. And after this, there was a huge discussion about this painting itself. In fact, it became the most Googled artwork in that month of April and May. So that's one small anecdote that we have about this painting.
But most probably it might be a replica or a print, or we don't know. We have to confirm with Sonia Gandhi whether they have an original work, possibly. We don't know. So this is a typical of the Madonnas from the Renaissance time, but instead of the baby Christ, you have this symbol, which is again the Trinity. And this is a very, very ancient symbol. And many people criticize Roerich, saying that he believed that the Stone Age for him was the Renaissance, where man and nature were in unity with each other. There was this ideal thing of nature and landscape painting, which he was so obsessed with, which became his most prominent contribution. So when landscape, and this particular landscape was kind of through the filter of this oriental view of India. At the same time, the difficulty of doing these travels are never seen. We just have one map in this whole book saying that this is their travel, etc. But how did they go there? Obviously they trekked. They didn't have flights, etc. to go to these difficult tracks. And obviously they use local resources, guides, etc. to take them. So they were friends with all these lamas who used to take them on these treks. And the intention was to capture the essence of the Himalayas, the changing light, the beautiful, Himalayas, as you can see, but also imagining that either he wanted to send these works back, or which was there in his collection after he passed away. But the most interesting thing was that these were like studies for his larger works. So the larger works have these backdrops of the landscape which we could see. These in Chinese you have a small logo, and these are very small in the corner, and these very large frames sometimes overlap, right? And this, I'm not seeing the backdrop of this. I don't know what's there behind.
Nothing's there behind,
Okay.
but the frame is hiding the monogram. So all the 36 works have that monogram of Roerich, but it's only very recently when we removed them out of frame to bring them here, we had to conserve these paintings. That's when we noticed that all the 36 have this monogram. It's hidden by the frame here, but in some of the paintings you can see them.
You framed them for this show.
No, no, we had to remove it and then remove it and bring it. The same stone.
I don't have to say much.
Yes, original.
So he was obviously looking for this nature as a spectacle, and that was his obsession. Unfortunately, we don't have any of these large works. They're either in New York or in collections like the Victoria and Albert Museum, Ashmolean Museum, etc. So it would be very interesting to have one of them to just offshoot the rest of it. But bringing these works from upstairs to here itself is a huge task, and we have to give you a prize. But we are not equipped to handle works, in the sense that one is security and one is a lot of other things of, like instantly we're just moving from upstairs to downstairs. For the first time, I think CKP is sending 5 works to the NGMA to be part of a larger show. So,
Delhi.
so we are all very, very happy to send works because we might get something else in exchange.
Yeah.
You can't keep getting if you don't give. So this is a certain policy we need to put into place in CKP. Because otherwise, as a museum and a space, we become very insular. And we're talking about somebody who was not insular. He was the man of his time. Unfortunately, passed away in 1947. Right?
Yeah, December 13th.
So just
Born in 1874.
Yeah.
Okay.
so not a long life, but at the same time, after he passed away, I think from Kulu, these people also decided to come to Bangalore. And if I'm not mistaken, Stetoslav started a farm with this thing called linoleum, fragrant plant which grew lavender, which grew quite well in the Bangalore weather. And they used to have an oil pressing unit which used to make them into essential oils and export it from here. We are not going into anything about Devika Rani, but that is, as I said, another story. So, estate after they passed away, that they did not have any children. And obviously, then CKP and Mr. Nanjundra are their caretakers, best friends, etc. Most governments, whether it's belong to any political spectrum, they don't know what to do with it. Obviously, they just sent cops there, and cops were hanging around in the estate. All the works were taken from there and stored, some stored in CKP, some stored in the Venkatappa Art Gallery. And I just told Vijayashri that there are 10 tin boxes full of stuff that has not been opened for the past 25 years, from the time the Roerichs passed away. So we don't know what's there in that. Even she or me, we don't know what is there. It's under custody of the government. But what is there is what you see, which is what has been preserved by framing, mounting, and keeping it there. And they are almost more than 100 paintings of Stetoslav Roerich that are there at the Venkatappa Art Gallery, which have been restored, and probably will be exhibited in a venue that I don't know. But for your information, they're planning to make the estate into a kind of a place where people could go. There would be a Devika Rani museum and a Svetoslav Roerich museum. All these works might go there. The government is going to decide. Unfortunately, the tourism department is very keen to take it up because they think people will go there to Tatguni Estate. From what I know, the road to Tatguni Estate is not great. So, but this is what the story is. But what we heard, that what is Tatguni Estate and why is it so important is, like in the past, they have two water bodies. Elephants it used to be in the elephant pathway. Elephants used to come there, hang around in the Tatguni Estate and move. They are very, very close to the Bannerghatta National Park. So, but Tatguni is, but from what I know is that the Kanakpura road and the current Chief Minister, Deputy Chief Minister has an interest that the metro stop will stop near Mr. Roerich's thing, and we don't know what's going to happen. But what you need to really have imagination to bring people in from the city to that place. One of the suggestions that I gave them was to set up a center where people could research and also invite. We have no touch with the Russians after this. Incidentally, a lot of Russian exhibitions came here because of the connection between Russia and India. And we had design exhibitions, we had artists visiting, etc. After that, nothing happened. We are not. It would be interesting to meet contemporary Russian artists, and even for them, it would be surprising to see that these Russian treasures are with us. And I just want to end this talk by saying that when we were students, busloads of Russians used to come to Chitrakala Parishad, and they used to literally kneel in front of Roerich and start sobbing.
In front of him?
Yeah. Because they thought he is some divine creature or something like that. No, like literally he was like, he looked very saintly, etc. But he used to hold their hand and console them, etc. But this is something that they feel that they've lost. And they're finding it here, and for them it was almost like having darshan. So there in the foyer you used to see these Russians on their knees weeping and trying to touch Roerich. So that is the relevance Russia has. And from some information I know that Mr. Gorbachev, when he was alive and kicking, he's still alive, right?
Gorbachev is alive.
Okay. So he called Svetoslav Roerich to the Kremlin, and he told Svetoslav Roerich that he's going to invest or in a center of the Roerichs in Moscow. I don't know what has happened because we don't have much information from Russia, and it is most important if these people stand for peace. These people also are a bridge between Russia and India. We need to connect back with them.